Hey guys, it's Millie. I meant to put this video up a few days ago, but never got around to it, so I'm going to record it now and post it. Here we go.
Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. It's the 15th, it's April, it's the year 2020, and this video needs to be shared with soldiers, reservists, National Guards, sheriffs, federal agents, police officers, anybody in law enforcement that is going to be called upon to force the wishes of the politicians, the bureaucrats, the people that have always been in power onto the people. The people at the very top are a very, very small group. The people that they will need you to force their new ridiculous laws based on lies are many. You really need to listen to this and understand that the entire world, not just America, is at a crossroads right now. What you do, how you act, will be recorded throughout history or maybe never at all. It's up to you. Listen to this. All the links, all the information, all the facts will be pinned in the comment section below. If you have a YouTube channel and you don't mirror this video, don't complain when it all comes crumbling down.
If you work in law enforcement, I have a very important question for you, one which soon may be a matter of life or death. I'm sure some people become police officers just so they can boss other people around. But I'm going to assume here that you mean well, that you want to be one of the good guys. In which case, my question is this. Is there anything the politicians could enact into law that you wouldn't enforce? Is there any order that you would refuse to carry out? Or will you do absolutely anything your bosses tell you to? In the U.S., police have already obeyed orders to fine or arrest people for a wide variety of harmless activities, such as dancing at the Jefferson Memorial or having a vegetable garden in their front yard. Police have even gone so far as to execute violent paramilitary raids on food co-ops and organic farms. For decades, police have been carrying out armed home invasions, forced property confiscations, and other acts of violence against people who weren't hurting anyone, but who engaged in behaviors or habits which lawmakers have arbitrarily declared to be illegal. You may be comfortable in assuming that you'll never receive an order to do something truly immoral. But the fact is, with every order you receive, you have a choice between obeying without question or relying on your conscience. No doubt there were cops a few years ago who never expected to be ordered to disarm innocent people, to do door-to-door home searches without warrant or probable cause, or to detain and interrogate people for merely driving down a road. Yet police have since been ordered to do all of these things, and almost without exception they obeyed. So it's not unreasonable to ask, is there any point at which you will draw a line and say, no, that I will not do? And if you won't draw such a line anywhere, if you will do absolutely anything your political masters tell you to, how are you any different from the enforcers of Soviet Russia, Red China, or Nazi Germany? You may be tempted to say, I don't make the law, I just enforce it. Or to argue that if some legislature, court, or some authority above you says it's okay, then it must be. But keep in mind that this is exactly what the thugs of every tyrannical regime in history said to justify their actions. And how do we remember those people now? As courageous, noble law enforcers? No. Unless you want posterity remembering you as a heartless, mindless pawn of oppression, then you'd better decide, and decide now, where you will draw that line.
Now, police officers, soldiers, federal agents, law enforcement of all categories, including sheriffs, etc., might say that today we find ourselves in different circumstances. But after doing a little research, or a month's worth of research, and talking to every medical doctor and looking at the headlines and the guidelines coming out of the CDC, it appears America's been set up. Not just America, but the entire world, by a small group of people. Now, I know, that sounds ridiculous, it sounds conspiratorial. Then why is this form right here from the cdc.gov, even though the Center for Disease Control is a privately owned, for-profit company and has nothing to do with the United States government? Even though their form right here that goes out to all doctors and nurses all across the country is telling them no matter how people die, if it's from leukemia, if it's from cancer, if it's from a heart attack, also include COVID-19 so we can boost our numbers. Now you're probably going, this is ridiculous. This is a conspiracy YouTube channel at any rate. But listen to this and check this out and understand this, because these are all facts and they'll be pinned in the comment section below. This article is from 2013, July 14th. This is FR Insider Access. This was widely known. You probably might not have known it because it wasn't in the mainstream media, but it still happened nonetheless. The United States government repealed the Smith-Mundt Act, which forbid the government from using propaganda on their own citizens. They repealed it and began spreading government-made news to Americans. That's how we ended up in Iraq for 13 years. That's how people you probably served with are no longer here because they committed suicide. 22 soldiers per day since Iraq started have committed suicide. You don't hear about that from the actor known as Donald Trump, do you? But it still happened nonetheless. They repealed this law so the government can freely use propaganda on the American people. Why would they ever do that? And surely they've never done that, correct? Well, that's where you're wrong. Let me show you a news article that just ran on every single news outlet recently.
This video, obtained by ABC News, appears to show the fury of the Turkish attack on the border town of Tel Abyad, a border town bombarded by Turkey's military.
This video right here appearing to show Turkey's military bombing Kurd civilians in a Syrian border town.
Now, this came out in October of 2019, and as you can hear the people, all the World News Tonight, ABC News, etc., they're talking about Turkey is bombing our ally Syria. Well, the problem with all that is this was a Kentucky gun show, as you'll hear.
Kurds who fought alongside the U.S. against ISIS. Now, horrific reports of atrocities committed by Turkish-backed fighters on those very allies.
Exactly. The mainstream news reported to absolutely everyone that Turkey was attacking our ally Syria, when in fact it was simply footage from a gun show in Kentucky, United States. And the thing about this is, even if it was just a small lie, they made it into a much larger lie by saying reports of atrocities were already coming in. Well, the thing is it's impossible for reports to atrocities to be coming in when this entire thing was complete and total, utter bullshit, okay? So that explains why they repealed the Smith-Mundt Act. The government's been using propaganda against us and against everyone for a long, long time, all leading up to this point we find ourselves in right now. This is the beginning of a one-world government, a one-world religion, and a one-world military. You've heard him say it, global, global, global. You've seen all these different paperworks come in over your offices, sheriff's department, federal agents, military, local law enforcement, etc., etc., etc. They're going to use you as pawns to keep us in check. They've had people scared to death staying in their house for at least 30 days and stringing people along. Donald Trump's going to send you a check for $1,200. Scratch that. Donald Trump's going to send you a check for $2,000. Wait a minute. That check's going to be delayed because Donald Trump has to sign it himself. And don't worry, because when you get your check finally at some point with Donald Trump's signature on it, that's only $2,000 for giving up all your liberties, all your business, your family, everything to sit in your house like an asshole, hiding from a disease that's simply a cold. Don't worry about that, because now, much like Willy Wonka, Donald Trump is going to put 5 golden tickets inside each one of them. How ridiculous is this? And yet this is our reality. The problem is the people are getting fed up. The people are beginning to actually protest being locked in their house, told they can't go within 6 feet, 12 feet, 13 feet, whatever the feet are of other people. This has all been a planned event in order to bring America to a halt, and it's worked perfectly. The problem is the fear's wearing off, and the doctors, the newspaper articles are beginning to pile up, but this whole thing is entirely and utterly bullshit. And the deal is they're going to use you against us. Maybe you are a sadistic asshole that just joined the police, the military, so you could shoot somebody else. But let me tell you something. There is an afterlife, and you will be judged. But there's also a now, and you will be judged. How you act, how you choose to carry yourself in these circumstances. If you turned off your television, there is no pandemic. There is no pandemic. I've been across the country 3 different times over the last 9 weeks. There is no pandemic. COVID-19 is a simple flu, and they've simply made it into the new ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, Red China, Russia, etc., etc., nuclear Armageddon. This is the newest one, and it's working perfectly, but the wheels are starting to come off, and that's where you're going to come into play. This man right here, Dr. Anthony Fauci, has been the one that Donald Trump, everyone's been leaning on. He's been explaining absolutely everything to us, right? He's the one telling people they can't go near each other, they can't do anything, blah, blah, blah. Yet every time you see these people giving a press conference, they're never social distancing, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life, and they're never wearing a mask. But what's more is Dr. Anthony Fauci right here, this fellow, also wrote this article in the New England Journal of Medicine you may or may not have heard about. This isn't mainstream. This isn't a conspiracy website. This is the New England Journal of Medicine. This article was written in 2020 by Dr. Anthony S. Fauci, MD. There's his credentials right there. It's a short article, but it gets right to the point. If you look right here on this 4th paragraph, this suggests the overall clinical consequences of COVID-19 may ultimately be more akin to those of a severe seasonal influenza, which has a case fatality rate of approximately 0.1%, or a pandemic flu, rather than a disease similar to SARS, MERS, which have a fatality rate of 9 to 10%. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm going to leave links to all this because this is going to play a part in history and perhaps your immortal soul for real. This guy wrote this article. To his peers, he's telling them the truth. This is just simply a flu, no big deal. The fatality rate is 0.1%. But when he gets on the television, when he's standing next to the actor known as Donald Trump, he says the exact opposite. You're going to have to decide which one is true. But I'll tell you what, use your senses. Nobody's dying. Hospitals aren't full. And every day, more and more world experts in their fields are coming out saying this is totally ridiculous. This makes no sense. Dr. Gupta, whatever it is, who cares? Oxford-based research team, same. None of this makes any sense. German virologist, Dr. Karen Moling, same thing. None of this makes any sense. And it's not just 10 experts. It's not just Dr. Fauci himself. It's 12 more experts. It just keeps coming and coming. I'm a dude on YouTube, and I've managed to get several MDs to come on and say, this is totally ridiculous. None of this makes any sense whatsoever at all. Numerous MDs have come out and said that you cannot even get a virus through an airborne fashion, meaning social distancing is absolutely laughable. It makes zero sense. Wearing a mask is absolutely laughable and makes zero sense. And yet we've already seen law enforcement beating people and dragging them off public transportation because they weren't wearing a mask. All the while, the people administering the law weren't wearing masks either. Why am I so upset? Why am I making this video now? Because people are exercising their constitutional, or what they thought was their constitutional right, to simply assemble. People have been locked in their houses like children for over a month. And it just continues. It's going to go on till May, maybe June. Don't worry, Trump's going to send you a golden ticket with his name on it. People are getting riled, and you're going to have to stand your ground either with humanity or with the scum who have been politically, Hillary's going to go to jail right away. Never happened when Hillary she committed treason against the United States. And yet, nothing happened. Trump did exactly nothing. These people are professional liars. They steal all the money. They make all the laws, and they make you do all the dirty work. Well, people are going to stand back up again. This is going to be absolutely the worst thing America has ever seen. And you need to make your decision right now because people are only going to take so much. Without you enforcing their laws, they don't exist. And maybe it's time they don't exist because they've decided it's time that we don't exist. You got to you got to make up your mind at some point. We have a God-given right to be on earth. These people have no right to do what they're doing right now, and we have every right in the world to defend ourselves, and people are going to. How are you going to be remembered in history? And chances are, if these people have their way, you won't even be remembered in history. We need to get these people out of here. All they do is make laws and break laws and lie and steal. Come on, everybody knows the deal.
Unfortunately, there's little indication that most cops have any line at all. The incidents of police officers refusing to inflict injustice upon the people are extremely rare. Even when cops say they personally oppose certain laws, such as marijuana prohibition, nearly all of them continue to violently enforce these laws against non-violent people. In other words, they recognize these laws as counterproductive and unjust, but they choose to enforce them anyway. For the most part, American cops seem completely incapable of disobeying immoral orders, and instead do what the enforcers of every other authoritarian empire have done, inflicting harm on innocent people whenever and however those in power tell them to, while accepting no personal responsibility for their actions. I hope you are better than that. Keep in mind, there are a lot of decent Americans who do have the integrity and courage to draw a line in the sand, a point at which they will disobey and resist violations of their rights by those in power. It may be that they refuse to be disarmed. It may be that they refuse to cooperate with warrantless searches, or refuse to keep funding a government they view as destructive and unjust. Whether you agree with them doesn't particularly matter. What does matter is whether in the end you are willing, if and when you are ordered to do so, to violently assault the dissenters for their disobedience. When they draw their line in the sand and stand their ground, and your supervisors tell you to use whatever level of violence necessary to get submission and compliance from the resistors, will you obey? If it came down to it, would you kill American citizens for disobeying politicians?
I swore an oath to the Constitution when I joined the United States Army. You swore an oath when you joined whatever level or branch of law enforcement or military you're in now. There's a reason it says you swear an oath to protect the Constitution from enemies both foreign and domestic. Domestic. The United States is being fooled on a level never before seen by strictly billionaires. Are you a billionaire? Neither am I. In order to be a billionaire, you have to screw over everyone you've ever met and keep collecting and piling up money. Period. Every time we turn around, the death numbers of this COVID pandemic turn out to be false. 10,000 people died in Italy. Well, according to the mainstream media, 88% of them that died could be misattributed. The death numbers they're giving us are laughable on their face. This entire thing is laughable on their face, and you have scumbags like this making laws that are more and more and more ridiculous. They have just with one fell swoop wiped away the Constitution, wiped away state lines. The United States has never been a disaster area in the history of the United States. What that does is gives the president the power to hand the keys over to FEMA. FEMA is going to be the modern day Gestapo. You need to decide what side of history, moral or not, you're on, period. Because people have had enough, and it's going to get ugly. And that is, and always has been, the plan. Richie from Boston, love me or hate me, share this video, because it's coming. It's coming soon. I'm out.
Why aren't you the landlord?
Sorry about that. Just an ad. But anyway, I hope anyone that is in the military, is a sheriff, is a police officer, anyone in charge that's listening to these people, I will not even say what kind of people I believe them to be, But will you really kill a grandma that refuses to let somebody in her house, doesn't want to be tested, doesn't want to be given injections? Then you might as well start at my house, because I'm not giving my blood to them. I'm not going to be tested, and I definitely am not going to get a vaccine. Think about it, because like he said, you will be judged by history, and even more important, you'll be judged by God. Thank you. Bye-bye.